Hi, in this short video I'm going to walk you through the Mile High Early Learning Montessori inspired infant weekly lesson planning form. We are going to talk about the front and the back of the form, and we're also going to talk about how to use TSG when planning and using this form. So the first part of the form is pretty self-explanatory. Fill out the classroom, the teachers, and the week of. The next part of the form talks about the changes to the classroom environment. So this is actual literal changes to the classroom environment. So here's where you would list out materials that you are rotating out. And these materials should be a reflection of the things that you are working on in your classroom down here in small group work, but maybe not all. It might just be something that you know that a particular infant might need some additional support on, so you're bringing out those materials to support that child. Either way, these are things that if a coach or a program director walked into your classroom, they would be able to see out and on the shelf and accessible for the children who are in your care for that day. So again, these are not things that are always out on the shelves or things that are small group activities that you might be pulling out to support children. These are the materials that you are rotating out in your classroom to support in the learning for the week. Additionally, we would want that these materials are being rotated out frequently, but it is okay if there is some repetition over a few weeks. So for instance, maybe you pulled out the big soft blocks because you have a particular child in your classroom that you're working with on stacking, and it's totally appropriate that the soft blocks remain out for the next 2 to 4 weeks, because we also don't introduce things to young children and then take them away the very next day. Children need repeated experiences and repeated opportunities to explore material. So it is okay if there is some repetition on this part of the lesson plan form, but in an infant classroom, you should be pulling out material quite frequently, so this box should theoretically never be blank. Additionally, down here is when we start to get into the small group work, and this is, both of these areas, but this area in particular is where you can really highlight the things that you are working on in relation to TSG. So if you notice, this infant lesson plan form has been split up by non-mobile infants, crawlers, and walkers. And then over here on the left-hand side, we have some areas of curriculum and content that you should be planning for each of the children in your classroom. So we're taking a look at outdoor activities and gross motor play, fine motor play, social and emotional, language and literacy, and STEM. I think it's really important to highlight this gross motor play and fine motor play piece, also the social and emotional piece, but we know that young infants are learning through physical development first, so they need a lot of sensory and motor experiences, so lots of opportunity for them to explore the world around them using their senses, and so it's really important that we are actively planning for both gross motor play and fine motor play activities in our classroom. But additionally, we know that some of the skills that infants need to learn to support them in their overall development are just skills like holding a utensil or holding a cup. And those are appropriate things to plan for young children and young infants on this lesson plan form. What we want to see in here is that over the weeks, there might be some times where there are repeated experiences for young children, because again, almost like the top of the lesson form, we don't introduce a concept to a child and then never talk about it again. They need lots of ample opportunity to be able to master a skill. But this is really where you could highlight and use TSG to support you on this lesson planning form. So pull activities from TSG to stick in here. TSG will actually even do some of the work for you as long as you have been inputting documentation and staying on top of TSG. Social and emotional is a big thing that we also want to focus on. We want to make sure that our infants who are transitioning to toddler classrooms are ready and that they can learn how to self-regulate themselves and also learn how to really love school and like being at school. So it's important that you are providing this social and emotional focus to young infants. And also I just think of it in terms of the importance of attachment. And so this is where you can start to do some of these things in terms of responsive caregiving and focusing on social and emotional. But again, TSG will support with every single one of these content areas, and you can pull activities directly from there to support the children in your classroom. But we want to make sure that we have a variety of activities going on for non-mobile infants, crawlers, and walkers. The last half of the front part of the form talks about important reminders, health and nutrition, and family-school connection. So important reminders might be things like PD Day next week, or please remember to wash your hands, although that could fall into health and nutrition. Health and nutrition would be if you are noticing that there's a need in terms of your children in your classroom and your families, like washing your hands in this day and age, you could go ahead and stick that there. Family school connection, a lot of times I see people talking about using your 5x5 card to explore the museum or the zoo. That's totally appropriate, but here you could also plan activities for parents of things that you're working on in the classroom, and just give them a little nudge of like, hey, make sure you're reading to your child at home. Here's a book that we have been reading at school, and list it here. So it's important that all of these are filled out each week, and the activities, although sometimes can be repeated, your whole entire lesson plan form should not be an exact carbon copy of the week before. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back half of the lesson plan, which does relate to the front part of the lesson plan. So this is where you really can dig deep into TSG and figure out what activities from TSG you are going to use to support the development of individual children in your classroom. So on this side, you would list the activity. Over here, you would list what TSG objectives it relates to, and then over here, you're going to list out the children that you are targeting for this activity. It is not appropriate for you to write all in every single one of these boxes. We need to show for Head Start and Early Head Start that we are individualizing for children, so you want to make sure that every child is represented at some point in the back of this lesson plan and tied to a particular activity. Again, this is a good place to use TSG and use the activities that are in TSG to support you, because TSG will give you that information and it'll tell you who you need to target with what activity. But every child should be represented somewhere on the back of this lesson planning form. Again, these are activities that, depending on the activity, could end up on the front part of your lesson plan form. So maybe for your walkers, it suggests that you are doing finger painting. So on the front part in fine motor play, you may be listing finger painting as your small group work for the week. And that's totally appropriate. These two things, the back of the form and the front of the form, should work to support each other and should provide you, and TSG should provide you with the information that you need to put on the front and the back of the form. Because again, TSG is going to highlight where your children are and where they need to go, and who needs some additional support in what area. So that in general is the lesson plan form for the infant weekly form. If you have any questions, go ahead and reach out.